Hello, fellow rebel capitalists. Hope you're well. We're back to our typical setup here in the studio. My good buddy Jason Hartman is gone. Wanted to go over a story that Josh pulled up from the World Economic Forum where they're talking about everyone's favorite topic, especially in the hands of the World Economic Forum: facial recognition. Let's dive into the story, the blog post. And as we go through it, let's go ahead and discuss this because obviously I'm very concerned. I think all of you on this live stream or watching this video after the fact would be very concerned that they're even discussing facial recognition. And although it may be a good thing in certain ways, you've got to do a cost benefit analysis on this. And it now I will give the World Economic Forum credit in the sense that they are bringing up a lot of the downsides as far as the intrusion in your privacy and the power that this could give local authorities, the police. But what they exclude from their analysis is how much power this would give the government and how they could use this against you and how they could control your lives to a greater degree than they're controlling them right now. Just think if they had this facial recognition on every single street corner in Australia right now. And you tried, and you were in Melbourne, as an example, where they've been in lockdown for, let's call it 230 days. You walk outside, and as soon as you do, that your face is picked up by a drone going over your head that's monitoring your street, or maybe some street corner, street lamp or street light, or that has some sort of camera on it that is turned on by a motion sensor, and then your face gets caught. That goes into a database, and that's how they're not only keeping tabs on whether or not you're in your house, but they're also keeping tabs on your social score. So, of course, if you leave your house like a naughty boy or naughty girl and try to walk around the block, well, then your social score is going to go from whatever it may be down, let's say 5 points, which would prevent you from getting a home loan the next time that you go try to apply for one from the local commercial bank, or most likely in the future from the central bank. So let's go through and take a look at what they're saying. And I'm going to do my very best to give them the benefit of the doubt here, because they at least bring up the downside here, or part of the downside. But then what's interesting about the World Economic Forum is they'll often present some of the negative ramifications that could result in new technologies that they are obviously in favor of. But their solution is always the same. Well, we just need more government. Or it's, well, the World Economic Forum needs to manage this. The World Economic Forum needs to set the rules. The World Economic Forum needs to micromanage local governments and police departments and authorities to make sure that we are protecting the citizens. All the solutions always involve the World Economic Forum and the global elite, who are non-elected, having more and more power. That's really the bottom line in any type of blog post they write. But let's dive into it here. Law enforcement agencies develop best practices for using facial recognition. Well, you'll see in the article, it's not just law enforcement agencies, with the help of the World Economic Forum. In partnership with UNICR, Interpol, and Netherlands Police, the World Economic Forum has published a white paper for the responsible use of facial recognition technology for law enforcement investigations. Why are these police departments even going to the World Economic Forum in the first place? Like, isn't that kind of bizarre? Like, why is Interpol or the Netherlands Police saying, you know who needs to help us with this? It's Klaus and Bigglesworth. Obviously. I mean, what? Why are they even making that connection? Why is that the entity that they're going through, or that they're going to, in order to help them kind of figure out the best way to implement facial recognition. That's the first red flag for me. Developed through a global multi multi-stakeholder coalition. Oh, here we go. Back to stakeholder capitalism. Oh yeah. Let's don't even get me started on that. Okay, law enforcement agencies will test this first of its kind governance framework in the first quarter of 2022. Well, again, governance, there is no governance. The governance would imply that this is coming down from at least the government, which it's not. It's coming down from these random people in the Netherlands police and the World Economic Forum. So they're circumventing the government, what it looks like to me. Paper includes 9 principles for responsible use of technology along with self-assessment questionnaire to ensure compliance. Oh, please. I mean, this is just naive on such an unbelievable level. As if you're going, I mean, let's just imagine this. Pretend that you're head of the New York police, or you're the head of the Miami police or LA police, and you're thinking about using facial recognition like Minority Report, something like that, to try to prevent crimes. And I'll get into my view on that in one moment. But just think if you get a questionnaire via email from the World Economic Forum. Say, hey, could you go through and answer these 20 questions? How is that going to affect your decision making process on how you use that facial recognition technology? Give me a break. The person is going to take the questionnaire and they're going to throw it in the trash. And what does the head of police for Los Angeles care about what Klaus is sending him, or how is that going to affect him in any way, shape, or form? Now, granted, Klaus may have a lot of pull with the politicians that are above the police department, and they may be persuading them. But as far as the direct sheriff is actually implementing the the facial recognition technology, come on, it's just it's naive and ignorant. And this is what really irritates me, is that they just treat you like you're a child, and it's just insulting to your intelligence. But let's keep going here. Geneva, Switzerland. The rapid uptake of facial recognition technology by law enforcement agencies in helping to resolve crimes, conduct faster investigations, and bring offenders to justice has raised serious governance challenges. Yeah, so right there, I'd start off by saying, let's do a cost benefit analysis. And is crime a problem? Uh, Yes, it is. But do we want to reduce it? Sure. Do we want to eradicate it? I don't think so. And that may sound kind of weird or counterintuitive, but just think what you would need to do. Just think the freedoms that would be lost if we were to completely eradicate crime. We'd all be living in a prison. So I'm okay personally with having a little risk there. I'm okay with having a little crime as long as it's not encroaching on the freedoms and liberty of the citizens that are within that society who are not committing the crime. I mean, we can see the crime rates have gone down significantly in the United States over the last, call it 3 decades. And we've been doing that without facial recognition technology. So, why shouldn't we believe that the trend will continue? And why do we have to go down this Orwellian path and give the World Economic Forum and these politicians this type of power, this type of control, to where they could use it not only against you, but the people you love and society at large? Insert Australia. Just like we said earlier, think about what would happen if they had that facial recognition technology and they're using it in drones flying over your street, making sure that you never leave your house for the greater good, of course. So, to address these challenges, the World Economic Forum, in partnership with Interpol Center of Artificial Intelligence and Robotics of United Nations. Oh, there we go. So, so you've got the World Economic Forum, you've got United Nations. Now they're the ones that believe they should be setting the guidelines for all of these local police departments. See, and that's what I was saying. That yes, that my I'll take my hat off to them. At least they're bringing up some of the downsides that could result in this new technology. But then their solution is always insane. Their solution is always we need more government, we need bigger government, we need more central planning. Or their solution is, well, we at the World Economic Forum, the global elite, need to control everything. Remote biometric technologies, particularly FRT, and I assume that's facial recognition technology, have gained a lot of traction in the law enforcement sector, and FRT accuracy has improved significantly. However, incorrect implementation, who's to determine what's incorrect or correct? Let me guess. The World Economic Forum. You see, this is the direction that every single one of these blog posts always, this is the direction they always go. The end conclusion is always the World Economic Forum needs to have power and control over what's happening in the entire globe. However, incorrect implementation without due consideration of the ramifications. How about the ramifications for the World Economic Forum coming up with these policies in the first place? You notice they never talk about that. Can result in major abuses of human rights and harm to citizens, particularly those in underserved communities. So here we go. Now we're talking about the agenda. We need equality. We need this woke agenda that the World Economic Forum pushes or is trying to push on the entire globe. So you can see that if the World Economic Forum had their way, most likely, if facial recognition technology was implemented, it would be, how can I say this without being YouTube friendly? It most likely would be implemented on people or against people who they deem as dangerous. And that's probably not the criminals. It's probably not the people doing the crime. It's probably the people who are standing up for freedom, the people that value freedom over safety. Those are the true domestic terrorists. And I'm not saying the World Economic Forum has labeled people who value freedom under that category, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see that in the future moving forward, especially here in the United States. I think that if you're someone that is against censorship, you will be labeled a domestic terrorist. If you're someone who is against, let's say, medicine mandates, then you will be a domestic terrorist. It's just like them using the word racist, right? It's what a racist has no meaning whatsoever anymore because they've used that term in such a generic way that it now applies to anyone who just doesn't really agree with the mainstream narrative or the woke narrative. They're automatically cast aside as someone that doesn't deserve to even have an opinion, let alone have their opinion recognized or their opinion available on social media for other people to see. The forum partnered with key law enforcement players to identify the risks and build appropriate governance processes. So why? Why is the World Economic Forum partnering? How? How does that happen? Does Klaus just call up a police officer or a sheriff and say, "Hey, we want to partner with you guys"? I mean, isn't that a little suspicious in and of itself? And who's identified the risks? The risks as defined by whom? Like, to me, one of the biggest risks is that the World Economic Forum is involved with this process at all. So obviously, they're not addressing those risks. It also held workshops with civil society organizations to review the various drafts and incorporated their recommendations. In practice, the framework is composed of common set of proposed principles for using FRT by law enforcement agencies that include provisions on the protection of fundamental human rights. Again, as defined by who? And I hope I'm wrong, but I think the probability is high that those human rights are granted to those individuals who have, let's say, favor in the eyes of the global elite. And for everyone else, well, they don't have those same rights. It goes back to all animals are created equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And if you want an example of that, look at the Patriot Act. Remember all of the privacy laws we had prior to the Patriot Act that now are just gone? How about you're innocent until proven guilty? Remember when that used to be a thing in the United States? And now it's just completely gone, right? Because for those individuals, if you're a quote unquote terrorist, well, then you don't have any rights. So then what happens is the definition of what a terrorist is, or the definition of someone that should not have rights, expands to everyone that disagrees with the narrative of the global elite. As a central partner in this endeavor, the Netherlands police will begin testing the assessment questionnaire early to give me a break. Every time they talk about this stupid questionnaire, as though that's something that's, I mean, just again, think about how childish this is. Think about how naive they think you actually are. And this just goes to show you that they're all sitting there in their ivory tower thinking that they are enlightened, that they're intelligent, that they're the ones that should be ruling over the world and ruling over you because you're just too stupid to do it yourself. So if they believe that you're stupid, is it any surprise that they talk to you like you have an IQ of 80 or that you're 5 years old? I mean, it all makes sense when you look at it through that lens. But how, I mean, honestly, put yourself in that position of that sheriff or that the person that's in charge of that police department, and that you're thinking about doing something in 5 years with this facial recognition technology. But then you're like, wait. Like, let's just say Josh right here to my right is in the on the police department, and I'm the police chief or something like that. And Josh says, "Oh, hey George, I think we should do X, Y, and Z with this technology." And I say to him, "Oh no, Josh. I mean that's a great idea, but no, unfortunately, we can't do that because remember that questionnaire we filled out 5 years ago from the World Economic Forum? Oh, we promised never to do that." As though that questionnaire holds some sort of weight in the decision making process of the police department. I mean, give me a break. Just complete nonsense. The self assessment questionnaire is a means to reaffirm our commitment to the responsible use of facial recognition for the benefits of our community. Yeah, again, it's this is all just mumbo jumbo, just drivel. It doesn't mean anything. It's like a PR move. They're just saying this as if they're really, listen, if they really wanted to be responsible about the use of facial recognition, they wouldn't use it in the first place. End of story. All right. Two super chats, Josh is telling me. Okay. You can see I can only handle reading this article for so long before it gets my blood boiling, honestly. I'm sure you guys watching these live streams of the videos, you can tell that in my voice. You can probably see the smoke coming out of my ears. This stuff really gets under my skin. But let's yeah, Josh, why don't you pull up the super chats here? Okay. Um brominated brominated vegetable oil. Some of these screen names are classic. they've perfected their tools in China, are ready to release to the rest of us. Yay, not really. Yeah, yeah, I agree. But what's interesting is I think China could be competing with the World Economic Forum. I think they go back and forth, and the World Economic Forum looks at China and says, "Oh, wow, that social score, that looks great. Why didn't we think of that?" And maybe China does the same thing when they're looking at the World Economic Forum, or maybe they meet and have these powwows or whatever in Davos. But I don't know that at the end of the day, they're on the same team. I think that they have the same type of message. But and the reason I say that is because China is not woke. I mean, they are the opposite of woke. Just the other day, they banned soy boys basically on national TV. I forgot what they called them. They didn't call them soy boys, but that's basically what they were saying. And the World Economic Forum would never, ever, ever do that. And the way I see the World Economic Forum in China right now is very similar to the way I look at like the Roman Empire and like the Persian Empire going back, however many thousands of years. And when I look at history, and I watch a lot of shows on history, and I try to read blog posts and whatnot as well. But I'm more, that's why I consume content. Is I reading, I get too distracted. But anyway, you see that when you had the Roman empires, when you had all of these kings in Persia and the Byzantine Empire and the Ottoman Empire and whatnot, they were always just clashing, and they're always trying to compete for territory. They're always at war. There were always rebellions. They're always devaluing the currency. They're always doing these things. And so it wasn't just one entity that was trying to conquer the world. You always had multiple entities trying to conquer the world all at the same time. It was just a matter of who was winning the majority of the wars. So as the Roman Empire grew, as an example, it's not like they were the only ones that were trying to take over territory. No, everyone around them was trying to do this. There were all of these Genghis Khan types, we'll call them, that wanted to have this power and control over other people. Now, I would argue it was a small percentage of the population, but since the governments had total control over the population and the societies and the countries, then they were just constantly at this war where if they would not have had as much power and control, I would argue if government would have been smaller back then, I would argue there would have been a lot fewer wars. Now there would have been a lot of tribal, conflict, but I think these huge, giant, just constant wars like we saw at the Roman Empire, I don't think you would have seen something like that. But maybe I'm wrong. But my point is, there were multiple individuals who lived at one point in time, at all points in time, on the planet Earth that are vying for this power and control. So why should we assume that today it's only one group? It's only the politicians or it's only the World Economic Forum. I think it's multiple groups competing for global dominance and power and control with one another. They're just doing it in a different way. They're not doing it with spears and swords and arrows and chariots or elephants in the case of Alexander the Great. They're doing it in different ways that are far more covert as opposed to overtly just going out and doing it where it's right in the open. But my point is, so I don't know that China and the World Economic Forum are kind of on the same team. I think they may be implementing the same types of strategies to a certain degree, and I think they may be learning from one another because at the end of the day, they're all central planners and Marxists. But I think China wants to rule the world, and I don't know if I'd go as far as say the World Economic Forum wants to rule the world, but they definitely want to have enough influence to where they're calling the shots. Okay, does the World Economic Forum have more authority or admiration? Yeah, so I don't know that they have really any authority over anything. I just think they have a massive amount of influence. So look at how Klaus interacts with Benioff, Mark Benioff, who's the CEO of Salesforce. I mean, he is like a clone of Klaus. Every single, not maybe not every blog post, but a lot of these blog posts, the things that he says in the media, he's just parroting what Klaus Schwab says constantly, whether it's about equity, whether it's about the disadvantaged this or that, whether it's about stakeholder capitalism. It's all the same script. So it's obvious that Klaus has a lot of influence, if not total control, over Mark Benioff. And so I don't know, is Benioff a useful idiot? Is he a puppet? I'm not sure. But my point is the World Economic Forum or Klaus technically doesn't own Salesforce. They don't really have any, they're not on the board of directors. They really, on paper, they don't really have control. But since they have captured, and I don't want to go too far down the conspiratorial path, but since they obviously have a lot of influence over Benioff, then by extension, they have control over what Salesforce does as well. So, Josh, can you throw that up there again? Yeah, so that's why I'd say I don't know that they actually have a lot of authority. I would say they more have influence over the decision makers, and those people are kind of the useful idiots and the puppets. And I think there are a lot of CEOs that fall into that category. I think a lot of these fund managers, and I think obviously a lot of politicians. Okay, is that it, Josh? That's it? Okay. All right, guys. Guess that's it for the super chats. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon or evening, and I will see you on the next video.